Hey everyone, Jim Branscombe here for the Cinematic Void vlog. Currently in Salem, Massachusetts on a little vacation. Had a busy last couple of months, so I'm just going to do a recap for both March and April for all the in-theater screenings I did for Cinematic Void. In March, I did a Cinemadness sequel series where I showed some of my favorite sequels. I kicked things off with a unauthorized, Italian-produced, ultra-sleazy sequel to the Australian film Patrick with Patrick Still Lives. Now, this is one of the most offensive horror movies ever made, and as a special treat, we had Patrick himself, played by Deanna Rooney, show up.
How'd you end up doing this sequel?
Well, there's a thing called pigeonholing in the biz, which if any of you are familiar with the biz, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Turns out if your name is Patrick and you're comatose, you are of a type.
Next, we screened one of the best 80s horror sequels ever made, Don Coskarelli's Phantasm 2, and we had one of the stars of the movie there too, Samantha Phillips, who gave a really fun Q&A after the screening.
Now, what was it like working with Don as a director? Because he's very, very imaginative and very creative. Because the first Phantasm was no money, and this he got a decent budget.
Yeah.
And basically got to stretch his wings creatively.
Yeah.
But how was it like working with him?
He was wonderful. Again, I was really insecure and young, and it's funny because my voice, it's a whole thing. But he really worked with me. Only one time did he ever sort of lose his cool a little bit with me, and it's the end scene in the hearse where I pull out my hair, and I didn't know how to be evil. I'm I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And it was take after take of gluing the hair back on and pulling it off, and all I had to do was go, But I really was having a problem with it. So I think he was come on. And I was oh God, get it together. And I think the next take was it.
I switched things up for the third week of Cinemadness sequels by showing one of my favorite all-time sequels. It is the fifth film in the Dirty Harry series, The Deadpool, starring Clint Eastwood. And as a special treat, thanks to my friend Del James, I was able to get a special video intro by Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses, who had a little role in this movie.
Clint Eastwood knew something about us and Welcome to the Jungle, the song, and asked to use the song for the movie, for this part of the movie, which you'll see coming up. And then he asked us to come up and be sort of cameos in the film. I guess he saw more of our future than a lot of the people at that point. Kind of interesting, right?
Closing things out for the sequel series, I showed Halloween 2, and completely unannounced, Michael Myers showed up for the screening, so I had him on stage and we did a little Q&A before the film.
You know, you have a lot of timelines going on right now. Which timeline do you prefer? Do you prefer this one where Laurie Strode's your sister, the one where she's not your sister, the other one, the Rob Zombie one? Which one's your favorite? Yeah, I agree with that.
For April, I ended up programming one of my favorite little series that I've put together, and turns out to be one of the more successful series I've done for Cinematic Void, called Horror by the Water. I kicked things off with a beautiful, original 60-year-old print of Carnival of Souls.
Has anyone not seen this movie tonight? This is the polar opposite of Halloween 2 last week, where everyone had seen the movie. But I don't want to spoil it. But this is a movie that strangely, I always loved this movie, but strangely during the pandemic, I watched it the most out of any movie because I couldn't sleep. And I just watched this movie over and over again. And for some reason, I related to it. I don't know why. Maybe it's feel like you're disconnected from the world, which is a very big theme in this movie.
Besides this being one of my all-time favorite movies, and being able to show a 35mm print, Elle Schneider also showed up, who's working on a documentary on Herc Harvey, the director of Carnival of Souls, and gave a little more insight into the film.
This film was made in 1961, it was released in 1962. It's an independent film made by a small crew. We've all seen many of these films on shows like Mystery Science Theater. I love them. I have a Teenagers in Outer Space phone case. But a big difference between a lot of those other independent films from that time period and this one is that this film was made by professionals. And everything in it is on purpose. All the humor is on purpose. The weirdness is on purpose. And so that's just something I like to tell people who haven't seen this for the first time, is that it's easy to kind of accidentally lump this movie in with stuff that was made by outsiders who were kind of stumbling into a film that became well known. You know, we have many Francis Coleman and Ed Wood type of filmmakers out there, but this was made by seasoned veterans.
Following the Salt Lakes of Carnival of Souls, we headed over to Malibu, where we screened another one of my all-time favorite horror films, this time the 70s slow burn shocker, Messiah of Evil.
It was a little independent project that technically was never finished. They were shooting money, and then the investors decided to take their money and leave, and the movie was shut down. And then allegedly a French production company bought it, edited whatever footage they had, put it together, and released it as Messiah of Evil. And a whole bunch of other titles, which we're going to go over here. Because tonight's title, the title card you're going to see tonight is Dead People, which is one of the more familiar titles it was released as. It was also released as Messiah of the Evil Dead in Canada. So you wonder what they're cashing in there. Deep Swamp. There's not a single fucking swamp in this movie. Night of the Damned. This is fine. The Second Coming, which was actually the title of this movie was shot under. Bloodbusters in Germany. And last, but certainly not least, Return of the Living Dead. Which they were promptly, well, not the filmmakers, the distribution company was sued by George Romero and Richard P. Rubenstein because they were trying to cash in on a little movie that came out in 1978 called Dawn of the Dead.
And we wrapped up the Horror by the Water series by showing one of the great 80s horror movies, John Carpenter's The Fog. Thanks for watching. Until next time, see you in the void.